or welcome back. This is my planning video all about my Make 9, my goals, my intentions, my whatever else we want to throw in there. Looking ahead at 2026 and what I want from my knitting journeys, from my yarny experiences, from all that good stuff. So, if you're new here, my name is Annalisa. I am a knitter based in London, and I'm back. I'm back in London. I started the year in California. I will probably have put some clips in there, just to, pretty things from California. California is beautiful. It's always been beautiful. It's especially beautiful right after it's been raining a lot. Where my mom lives is in Southern California. I did grow up in Northern California, so for me, it's not necessarily home to go home to LA, but it is, I've been going there since I was little. It's where my mom's whole family is from. So I've got a lot of reason to go back there. And this is Lola. You can almost see her, but not quite. She's not quite in frame, but she's keeping me company. She's like a little hot water bottle. So anyway, you'll have seen some footage from California. I'm now back in London. It's very much that time of year where you're just making all the plans and thinking about the future of what the year is going to become for you. And for me, that's a lot of travel. That's a lot of hopefully exciting things. And I'm going to stop rambling. We're going to get into the actual goals. We'll start with goals, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of, I'm saying 9-ish projects that we are going to be trying to make this year. I found my Everything I Knit video really helpful for me to just kind of think about what I enjoyed, what I want to do more of, what I love about knitting, and just leaning into that as much as possible. So when I've been thinking about these goals, I've thought about a few different things. One of them is that it's like, what do I want from my knitting? What do I want? What brings me the most joy of my knitting? And I also think about things like how I'm going to wear these things. And I have in my head, at least, like a number of kind of outfit scenarios. Hi. And so I'm keeping those in mind. Like, where is this going to fit into my life? I'm also thinking about like inspiration that I have around me. So I'll get a lot of inspiration from nature. I get a lot of inspiration from art and from fashion and from travel and things like that. So where am I going to be pulling inspiration from this year? I've also been thinking, sorry, I'm looking at notes here so that I remember to actually hit some points. I'm also thinking about like what's in the calendar, seasonal stuff as you would expect. And then also, what do I want to kind of like try or improve in terms of my knitting as a craft itself? So that's kind of like what's framing some of my thinking. And in terms of my actual kind of goals and intentions. So the first one, I only have 4. I have 4 goals around my knitting. So the first is to kind of thinking about what I love about my knitting, what I love about the knits that I've done this year, 2025, last year. I want to lean into the kind of storytelling and memories that come from knitting. It doesn't have to be like deep storytelling stuff, but it's more just like, how am I imagining the story around each of the sweaters that I'm making or garments that I'm making? And what could I do to just make them a little extra special? Because that seems to be what I come back to when I'm thinking about my knits that I've already made or what I've been working on. It's what brings me the most joy, is like telling the story around it and remembering the story around it. So even if I haven't been intentional about it, like it's something I was knitting while I was traveling or something else in life was happening. So yeah, sort of just leaning into that sort of storytelling. I guess it's sort of like the whimsy of it. I'm trying to think of how I can bring this to life. So one example is one of the knits that is not on my Make 9, but it's something I'm really craving putting on my needles, which is just a simple stockinette, cozy, oversized Baba style, big, earthy knit, I guess. And as I've been thinking about this more and more and looking at patterns and looking at like, what do I want this to be? I basically realized like, I just want to knit myself a cocoon. Like I just want to knit, like envelop myself in some cozy, warm, delightful knitwear. And in my head, I am knitting myself a little cocoon. So things like that. So it's just the story I'm telling myself around these that make them a little extra special and tie them to a moment in time or a place or an experience. And so that's like, yes, I want my items in my wardrobe to be wearable. And I could just think of it, yes, I want to do a basic stockinette pattern because it'll be that type of knitting that I will really enjoy this time of year and all that stuff. But if I can just give it a little bit more of a story, a little bit more personal connection to me, and that I love doing that with my knitting. Okay, so that's goal number one, is sort of storytelling, memories, whimsy. Whimsy is basically the name on that one. The second one is developing my skills, especially around fit. So I think I do this anyways. If you've watched my podcast, you know that I tend to like make quite a few modifications to things. I'm not afraid to make modifications, but I've been learning a lot from other podcasters or different patterns and different design sort of thinking around certain garments that make me want to just have those things in the back of my mind, like to improve fit, to create more thoughtful details, things like that. So I already, like I said, I do a lot of this stuff, but for example, one of my first projects in my Make 9 is around, and probably the pattern that I think I'm going for on it is the book club pullover by Sari Nordland. And I was watching the other day, I'm going to forget the name of the podcast. Ruby and Pearls, maybe? I'll put it on the screen. She's a very experienced knitter. I think she's been doing this a whole lot longer than I have. And she was talking about how she kind of does these, I'm gonna put the link to her video where she explains this in way better detail, but basically a thing that she does in those drop shoulder designs where there's like increases in order for it not to be too tight on those increases. And I want to try that because she's making the book club cardigan, and it'll be a similar construction type on the back panel on the trapezoid. So yeah, so she's talking about how she's going to make those adjustments and talks you through kind of how to do it in order to stop it from being too tight in that area. So things like that I just really want to play with. There's a few designers that I know do really like interesting and thoughtful details around fit. For example, Lily Kate Makes, or Vert Knit, and everybody wants to knit the matcha jumper, and like there are things like that I want to learn from those people, and I want to integrate those kinds of those skills into my knitting practice. So that's number two. So yeah, just building my skills around particularly fit and details, and yeah, making things the best they can possibly be for how I might wear them. So that's that. Number three is experiment and play. So I think this applies both to my knitting as well as to this channel. And I'm, fairly new at this podcasting thing. Sorry, the sun has all of a sudden come out, so we're getting some interesting light depending on where I lean. But I think this is definitely my creative space. So I have had various periods in my life when I've had more space for creativity or design or just more artsiness in my life. And right now this is really, there was a couple of years where I didn't have it, and I realized how much I missed that and how much knitting has brought that back into my life. So and also doing these videos has brought that back into my life. So just learning new skills and playing with, combining clips and making it, music and things like that, that I know people don't really care about when they're watching these videos, but I find it really interesting. And I think, to me, it's more about like protecting that space for me, so that it is that creative, playful, enjoyable space for me to just, appreciate my knitting and play with yarn, really. So yeah, I'm thinking for this channel I might end up doing, because I've got at least 2 trips coming up this year that are quite knitting related, and I'd like to try and like document those and see how those, if I can turn those into videos. And if people don't watch them, that's fine, but it will still be an enjoyable experience for me to learn. And so and my third one is just sort of keeping this channel and my knitting as a place to just play and experiment and be creative. And not everything has to be perfectly wearable all the time. Like, some things can just be created because they're beautiful and they bring me joy to create them and to have them. And yeah, that's my third kind of goal intention for the year. And my fourth goal or intention for the year is about just continuing to connect with the knitting community. I obviously started this channel back in September or October, and I was so welcomed by everybody and have continued to be so welcomed by everybody that's engaged with me through this channel or on Instagram. And I want to be that person. I want to be the person who like welcomes people and is just super encouraging and super supportive of other knitters. And yeah, I want to do more of that. I'm not entirely sure Instagram is my channel, but I will continue to post stuff there. It's just, yeah, it's not in my natural routine. So I'm trying to get better at it, but failing. I'm also trying to do Ravelry and still haven't updated that since probably this time last year. So all things that I'm trying to do. But I do want to contribute maybe a bit more to the knitting community. I know I do that through these videos, and hopefully I do that through these videos. But that's just an ongoing goal for me. So yeah, those are my intentions. So we're leaning into storytelling and memories and all that stuff. We are developing skills, especially around fit, and we're experimenting and playing with my knitting. And we're continuing to kind of like connect and enjoy this lovely knitting community. So that's sort of setting the scene. I forgot to mention what I'm wearing. So this is the project from last year. I think I finished this in May. I started in March, and it is the Lyra tee. I want to say top, but I think it's a tee, by Irene Lynn. And it has these little kind of cable details on the sleeves and on the hem of the, let's see there. Yeah, beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's really delicate. I knit this in a reclaimed cashmere fabric or yarn from an old jumper that I couldn't even find an original photo of, and a strand of Lang Cashmere Dreams, which is a cashmere fluff yarn that I had purchased on sale, probably, when did I purchase that? I think at the beginning of my journey. Like I definitely bought quite a lot of yarn early on when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to knit with. And this was one of those things. And I've used it in a few different projects, which you can, and I have a small project quantity in my stash of a red color, which I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it, but I have a few ideas. So it's not in my Make 9. None of those ideas are in my Make 9. So let's move on to my Make 9. I've never done one. it was just one of those things that I know other knitters do. And I actually found it to be a really interesting process to use it as a bit of like a forcing function to prioritize my knits. I'm not going to hold myself accountable to this, really. It's just a helpful way to think about the year and think about what I really want to create. I think I only knit, I haven't done the math, but I think I only knit about 9 garments last year. So the idea that, considering I'm already casting on things that aren't on this list, it seems likely that I won't knit everything on here, but I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. It's a nice way to think about, the full year and the big picture and kind of zoom out. And a lot of these are basically concepts at this point. So they may or may not be actual. I think I've got some patterns associated with them, but mostly it's just concepts. So without rambling, oh gosh, we're already past that. We're definitely in the rambling zone. I'm going to talk about the first one. So my first of my Make 9 is the landscape sweater that I am already working on. So this is a whip that's coming over. Well, it's a concept that I've been working on since the end of last year. I am attempting to do this with modifications to the homestead sweater. And I've started some of this. If you watch my podcast, you'll have seen some updates on that. I'm a little skeptical still if this is going to turn into what I want it to turn into. At this point, I'm still working through the front panel. Once I do the front panel, I'm going to embroider some elements on to see if I can get the detail that I want from this. If I can't, and if I embroider it and I'm kind of like, it's too, my concern is the gauge is too big to create the detail that I want to create with this sweater. So when I look at like my inspiration photos for this project, I worry a little bit that the very large gauge, which means it knits up quite quickly, but it feels like maybe it could benefit from a smaller gauge to get more detail that I would like to create from this. So that's where we're at with the landscape sweater, but I do want to do this. So if that project doesn't work, I'm going to try a different way, whether that's I just self-draft something or especially now that I kind of understand how the intarsia stuff works and how the fabric works a little bit. I have an idea of what I would do to make this different already. So we'll see how that plays out. But I want to make a landscape sweater of some kind this year. So that will either be the one I'm already working on or I will work on a new one. Landscape sweater. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is what I'm calling my spring garden cables. And this has come from like many different variations of inspiration, but originally I was just going to do a blue cable sweater because I figured it would be lovely to be working on some cables this time of year because it just feels cable-y this time of year. And I thought maybe in a brighter color it would be more fun and more spring-like. And then I started to get a lot of Pinterest recommendations, probably because I was interacting with the content of sort of embroidery on cabled sweaters, and especially like floral embroidery on cable sweaters. And then around the same time, I found this garment or this sweater on eBay and sent it to my mom's house where I picked it up in when I was there in January. And I'll put a picture up of what the fabric looked like knit up in this garment. And it's sort of this like tealy blue with lots of kind of confetti tweedy bits in different colors. And I was just like, oh, that would be so cool to do that in a cable motif and then embroider on different flowers in different like, what are those the cables that look like little windows, basically. So I started playing with this idea, and then I became kind of obsessed with this idea. So I picked up the sweater when I was in California. I have already unraveled it. I will show you the yarn that it is currently. So I don't know if you can see it, but it is lovely. I'm gonna hold it with another yarn from a cashmere sweater. This is wool and cashmere. I think it's mostly wool. It's definitely a little scratchier, but yeah, and it's kind of fingering weight. So I think holding the two together is gonna give me a DK realistically. So I need to swatch it. I need to figure it out. But my current plan is the Book Club Pullover by Sari Nordland. And I just think this is gonna be the perfect amount of kind of windows to put different florals, because it goes down the arm and the back and everything. And I could imagine it could be a project that I don't fully finish this year. Like I do the knitting bit and that's finished, and then I add flowers, a couple flowers this year, and I add a couple flowers next year. And for me, florals and like my other hobby, I guess you could say, is gardening. So especially kind of urban biodiversity gardening. So I love like wildflowers, but generally flowers for me have a lot of memories and connotations with them. So like they remind me of people, they remind me of places I've lived. You know, for sure, one of the first flowers going on this jumper is going to be a California poppy. And you do find them in England, by the way. You can see them on the south coast, in like Devon and Cornwall. They do have a lot of California poppies. But I saw some when I was back home, and it was lovely. And so things like that, which have like obviously quite a lot of memories for me. Maybe we don't kick ourselves right now. But yeah, just feel a little extra special. But even like it'll depend how long I take to knit this. But I could imagine sort of adding flowers as they start coming into season. So, I mean, we're already like, snowdrops are already coming up, and I will probably put a snowdrop on there. So I need to start knitting quickly, but just, yeah, that kind of thing where it's embracing the beauty and the memories and the little stories that go along with some of these embroidered elements, but also just being able to have a finished garment that I will love, because it'll be beautiful colors and beautiful cables and all of that. And yeah, and then build on it over time, or maybe that's just this year, or maybe that is over years. So that is my garden cable sweater. And I will talk more about that in a spring planning video. I'm gonna do a winter spring, because in my mind, like my knitting planning kind of goes in 3 seasons. It's sort of this time of year until maybe May, and then the summer months, and then the fall winter months. So winter spring I'll do a video more specifically about the projects I'm working on in that season, and reviewing how I did with my plans from the fall winter period. So, but so just big picture thinking at this stage. And then the third of my Make 9 is my husband's cardigan. So I've been talking about making my husband a cardigan for pretty much since I started knitting garments again. And it's a little bit of an intimidating project, partially because he's 6'5", and that's a lot of knitting. And also I want to do a bit of texture, and I want it to be nice. Like, I don't do a lot of gift knitting. I think it puts a bit of pressure on it that I don't love, but my thought is I will be working on this throughout the year. The original inspiration for this came from an episode of All Creatures Great and Small, and I think Siegfried was sick, had the flu or something, and so he has this like yellow cardigan, and my husband and I were watching it, and he was like, "Oh, I kind of like that. I could do with a sweater like that." And I have all this yellow yarn from these reclaimed John Lewis sweaters that I actually did my how to unravel a cashmere sweater video using that yarn. So that I'm going to hold it with something else so that it has a bit more kind of a marled effect to it and a bit more color definition to it. I haven't figured out exactly which direction I'm going with that, but that is the overarching is a cardigan. I want it to be textured. I want saddle shoulder, I think. I think that's what he will like the most. Right now, I'm looking at the new pattern from Rebecca Clow, and she's got this, the pattern is in, well, she's got a stockinette version and a half fisherman's rib version, and it's saddle shoulder, it's a men's fit and a women's fit, and she's got a like Henley neck or just a crew neck. And so I figured I could probably modify the Henley neck to just be a cardigan and do kind of a button band. I think I can modify this to be kind of what I'm looking for. The other idea is to kind of go for some more of like a shawl collar style. If you do know of a good pattern for that, I know a lot of the shawl collars have raglan shaping. He doesn't love raglans, so yeah, that's basically, I'm hoping for more of a, I think a saddle shoulder will be really nice on him. So that's where I'm going with that one. I would probably be doing this in the half fisherman's rib, which again is a little intimidating. I've never actually done half fisherman's rib. So first step is to swatch and see if I can stand doing it for a small period. And then I think it's just about getting it on my needles and having it as a project that I work on probably all year. Not trying to get it done in any specific time, but just have it as a work in progress that I'm constantly working on and not put the pressure on it. And if I get really into it and want to just keep going with it, then I can do that. But also, I'm happy for it not to be finished this year. Like I'm happy for it to just, but I just want to get started with it. So that is the third of my Make 9. Now the fourth is a little bit more simple, I guess. It is a pink lacy cardigan or pullover. I haven't quite decided. I think when I started this, getting into the sort of knitting world, I saw a lot of these beautiful, mohair, lace work sweaters that I was like, oh, that'd be so lovely. And then I kept thinking about like, when am I ever going to wear this? This feels very, just like maybe not fit into my wardrobe particularly. And then I saw this photo, which I'll put up, which I assume is some kind of influencer, or it's Suzanne. I don't actually know where this is from. Somebody probably does and can tell me, but I love it. I think it's so pretty. So I'm planning to kind of recreate this, basically. And I'm currently looking at the Kathy Cardi by the Craybea, Rebecca Clow, and I think it's kind of the perfect pattern for it. I don't want it to be super tight. I just won't wear it if it's super tight, but I think if I can kind of create something short sleeve, but like long short sleeve. I don't want them to be cap sleeves, and then something with like a little bit of a lace pattern, and I think it'd be beautiful. And I think it kind of makes it more casual than some of the other really lacy patterns that I've been looking at, but I might change my mind. I might end up going for more of the lacy patterns. I'll put a couple images, I cannot remember the names of them, of other garments that I've kind of been drawn to as a potential for this sort of pink, fluffy, girly moment. The yarn is one that I got off my Etsy seller that I love, who does a lot of kind of cone yarns. And let me pull this out. This is a cashmere fluff off the cone yarn, and it's a silk. Yeah, it's fluffy cashmere, 75% cashmere, 25% silk. And you can kind of see, it's kind of almost a little bit heathered, pinky purple. I think it'll be super pretty. I think I have enough to hold at least double, possibly triple. It depends. I'm, again, going to need to swatch for this. But yeah, I'm very excited about this. I don't know how incredibly wearable it is, but I think I will love having it. And I guess, again, when it comes to like my intentions of just playful and enjoying the process and enjoying the experience, this feels very springtime in Paris to me. Cherry blossoms. That's my vibe. All right, so that is my, I think we were on 4. Yes, that is the pink sort of lacy cardigan. Number 5, I did my kind of all over cable cardigan, green cable cardigan over the fall period. And I loved that experience, and I really want to do, I really realized that like, I don't have a big cable white cardigan, not cardigan, pullover in my wardrobe. I have simple kind of textured white sweaters in my collection, but nothing that's like, I don't know, that classic cabled pullover. And I'm thinking I'll probably do this in the fall. And I think I just want it to be, yeah, I haven't picked a pattern. I'm not even going to try and pick a pattern until we're way closer to it. But I feel like this would just be something I would love to be knitting on next fall and into the winter. And I have this like oversized, I think it's probably sort of a half fisherman's rib type thing, sweater that I wore a lot this kind of Christmas period. And I would love to make one that's just even more me and more special. So I managed to get my hands on 2 of the same sweater, which are both John Lewis. And this is the one I haven't unraveled. I have unraveled one of them. And so this is the yarn that I will be, it's actually a very lovely sweater. It is a little stiff. I think it's ever so slightly too small for me, at least for what I want from this, which is super oversized and cozy. So I think if I have 2 of them, that will really just make it something that I can make into the perfect oversized cable cream. I guess this isn't really cream. This is like it's like a very light gray. And it has a little bit of like tweediness to it, which I love. And yeah, very excited about this. But I'm going to not try and cast this on until kind of autumn, winter period. Okay, so that's my classic cables. I think most knitters kind of want that in their wardrobe or want to make one of those. I have other cables that I would love to knit. I would love to knit a cardigan that's in a cream color, but I'm not going to knit them all this year, and I don't need to knit them all this year. But yeah, that's my whitish classic cables. Number 6 is a Colourwork yoke. I have never knit one. I really don't do a lot of color work, and I've done a lot of mosaic and a lot of, now I've done a decent amount of intarsia with my landscape project. So I want to work on my stranded color work as a skill. I want to try a circular yoke again as a skill. I've heard a lot of people talk about sort of fitting with raglan increases and certain patterns that build that in, which I think I'd like to try. I think most knitters want to have this skill, and it's one that I would like to try and challenge myself to do this year. The pattern that I definitely kind of have top of mind is the autumn alpine, which I mentioned in my fall winter knitting plans as something that it was kind of between that and the landscape sweater as to what I would focus on in the fall. So I ended up working on the landscape sweater. I can very much see myself pulling that plan into the fall next year, or even trying to get into it into the spring. So that's something that the design that I have in my head definitely comes to mind quite a lot, which is dark background. I was initially thinking navy, but I'm actually thinking black at this point. I have kind of a weird relationship with black. I I find it very easy to wear in my wardrobe. A lot of my sort of dressier pants are black. A lot of my workwear is black. A lot of my shoes are black. A lot of my coats are black. So it does just make, I find that if I make things or find things that go well with black, I just wear them more. At the same time, I don't think it's particularly flattering on me. I don't think it's particularly flattering on many people. I think black can be quite harsh. I've not done my colors or any of that stuff, but I'm pretty sure I'm sort of autumn or spring. I definitely lean more towards those tones than I do winter or summer. But yeah, at the same time, I do wear black and I do enjoy it. So I think it will be kind of a black background. My main inspiration is coming from the version that Sonder Yarn Co. did with like the white flowers and the black background, a little bit of pink in there. But I think I would like mine to be white, have green leaves, and a little bit of yellow in them on a black background, which I think would just be very fun and stylish and interesting, but also I think it would be quite wearable. I think it's something I could wear more workwear, more like professional side of things. And that color combination in terms of the flowers, that, or at least what I have in my head, is very reminiscent of these poppies that I grew up having in our house. And I just, yeah, they're really interesting. I'll put a picture of them, and they are one that like needs fire to seed. I'll dig out actual facts on this when I come to the point of creating it, but it's a really interesting, beautiful plant. And they're these giant white poppies with yellow. They look like giant kind of fried eggs. And yeah, so that's the Colourwork yoke that I currently have in my mind. Honestly, it might end up being something completely different, but I would like to try and challenge myself to do a Colourwork yoke and a circular yoke, learn a few techniques around that, especially with stranded colorwork. I would love to try ladder back jacquard, which I honestly have no idea what that is, except for that some people have tried to explain it, but I'm pretty sure it will just take a few YouTube videos to figure it out. So that's on my list as well. All right, so we are on number 7. Number 7 is a souvenir sweater. So I was very inspired by Soph Knits Daily, who did a video about how she kind of took her trip in Norway and wanted to create something that was like a souvenir from that experience, and change some motifs to be more, meaningful to her experience in Norway. Brilliant. Like, I love it. I love the idea of having this thing from a special period where you travel to a place and a special trip and all the rest of it. And I think anything can kind of be that to some extent. Like, anything you bring with you on that trip becomes a memory from that trip. But I have a trip coming up, like trip of a lifetime kind of thing. Like, I have wanted to go to this place. I'm not going to talk about it yet, not because like I don't want people to know about it, but just like I don't want to jinx it or something. But it's a trip that is for my birthday this year. My birthday's in February, so it's not like it's something that my husband has planned for me as a trip for my birthday. It has been top of my list of places to go for decades at this point. And I think there will be some yarny elements to it. So I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I want to do a sweater that kind of commemorates that trip. And I will likely buy yarn there. If I don't buy yarn there, I will still make something that commemorates that trip. I don't know exactly how that will turn out. I don't know what the inspiration will be. I don't know anything about that, but I want to give myself creative space to create something from that experience that I can then have with me for a longer period in my life. I don't want to say forever. Nothing's forever. But yes, my souvenir sweater. So that is there's another trip that I'm going on, which I will probably also knit something from, but it's less like, it'll be less creative, I think. It will be more, yeah, we'll get to it. We'll deal with that when we get to it. So yeah, that's my souvenir sweater. I will probably end up working on that either over the summer or into the fall, because the trip's not until halfway through the year. Number 8 is a kind of broken rib repeat. So in 2025, I knit 2 broken rib sweaters kind of back to back, and I loved the process of knitting a broken rib, especially 2x2 broken rib. I feel like there's a lot of kind of fun things you can do with that because it creates quite a lot of structure, and like increases and decreases look really cool. And basically I want to build on what I learned from those 2 jumpers and create something of my own that I feel like will be an improvement on both of them, basically. So the first one that I did was a deeply modified late checkout sweater from Kutova, and I did this on a different needle size, a different gauge, with different yarn weight, and then changed a bunch of things about the pattern. I will write up some notes and put that on Ravelry at some point. I have been asked, and I'm sorry this has taken me so long to get myself together. But I love that sweater. I love what I've created with it. But there are a few things that I'm like, ooh, that could be better, or I could do something really interesting with it. So I want to play with that, and I want to see what I can create if I just kind of start from scratch and think, okay, what yarn do I want to use? What gauge does that create? What do I want to make in terms of the shape? What do I want to do with the broken rib bits? I have a lot of ideas, and I'm very, looking forward to it. So that's something that I also might make that more of a summer knit. I do wear a lot. I have a number of just like cotton heavy sweaters that I wear during the summer, and I love them during the summer because they, when I'm just lounging around at home and you're not like, obviously when it's really hot, you're not wearing them, but most of the time in London, it's not that hot. And just having a cozy layer that isn't super warm is really lovely. So that's I'm thinking that will probably end up being sort of a summer project. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. And I'm looking forward to just playing with it and seeing what I can create. And I will keep you guys in the loop as I'm doing that. And then the 9th one, and then I've got a bunch of like maybes. A bunch of other things that are roaming around in my head, but I will be perfectly fine if they don't happen. I'll be perfectly fine if all of this doesn't happen and I just do whatever I want as I go along. But I am looking at what I might do for a Christmas jumper. And I think that this is coming out of, obviously, we've just been in that period. I love watching other people's Christmas jumpers. I had a lot of ideas of Christmas jumpers as I was going through that sort of November, December period. I do think the tricky thing with Christmas jumpers is you want to be working on them sort of November, December, but you also want to be wearing them at that time. And I don't know if I'm going to want to work on one in August. But anyway, I have a bunch of ideas. I will consolidate my ideas and actually put those into a video at some point. I thought about doing it before in December, but I think I never got around to it. It probably makes more sense to do it closer to the early fall period when I'm actually making plans. And I think there's a cheat version of this that I'm thinking of, which is just to embroider on an existing sweater, which I might do. I have no problem with it being something that I can only wear in December or only want to wear around in November, December, and then it being something that I actually just put away. I think that's fine. I have enough knits to wear the rest of the year. So, so Christmas jumper. But I have a bunch of ideas on this. I've been dream knitting Christmas jumpers all November, December. So I will see what also is still in my head at that point. I think I do that a lot, where I kind of come up with these plans and then I let them sit for a very long time to just marinate, figure out if there's still something that I want to do. So that's the 9 out of 9. So those are my make 9. The other things that have kind of been popping around in my head, which I've not included in the make 9 because there probably will happen, but They're things that will happen as and when, as opposed to me kind of needing to think about how they fit into my year or how I might want to be knitting them or what yarn I need for them and all that stuff. So one is I will be doing another Christmas decoration. I enjoyed that way too much. I think this will either be a gnome or a snowman. Yes, I want to build one of those into my collection every year. Another one that is probably going on my needles very soon is a pair of DK weight socks. So, and just generally, I think I could up my sock game a little bit. So I'd love to try a couple of more elaborate patterns. Not elaborate, but like more than just a basic sock, basically, which is what I've knit so far. The oversized relaxed cocoon sweater that I mentioned earlier, that's probably going on my needles soon. But just having that like cozy stockinette option, I have a few ideas around those, so we'll see what plays out. And then the last two, I'm kind of like, will this happen? Probably not. But a Gansey, like a more traditional Gansey. I mentioned that I was going on another kind of yarny trip. This will potentially inspire some Gansey type knitting. So I might do something from that, whether that's a sweater or an accessory or whatever it is. But I have a feeling I will come away from that a little bit inspired and want to create something Gansey-esque. And then I have this other totally random one, which has just been living in my head since I saw this image, which is this kind of vintage varsity cardigan. And I think it's super simple. It could be super fun. And I like the idea of having it in my wardrobe. I'm gonna let that keep mulling and marinating until I'm ready to do something with it. But I've got enough to get on with all my other projects, and I've been talking for a very long time, so let's just leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for being here, for watching. If you have any questions, comments, thoughts on any of the ideas that I've been putting out there, let me know. I am gonna do a kind of specific to winter, spring planning video with more details about patterns and what I'm actually putting on my needles. And I'm also going to do another podcast update soonish, so stick around and yeah, subscribe or come back or whatever you want to do. And I really just appreciate you being here, and I hope you are having a wonderful start to the year, and I will hopefully see you soon. Thanks so much. Bye.